In the near future, the mining spaceship Borealis is traveling through space. The crew is in cryopods since they still have 4 years left to reach their destination. Suddenly, an asteroid hits the ship, causing serious damage and triggering the alarms. Inside one of the cryopods, Andy is jolted awake by a video message of his family, who are still back on Earth. The ship's AI announces there's been a hull breach and activates the survival system. Robotic arms quickly begin building a special survival suit around Andy, which includes its own AI and a limited oxygen supply. The emergency launch sequence starts, ejecting all the cryopods from the Borealis. Most of the pods shoot away safely, but a few get caught in explosions as parts of the ship begin to break apart. As the robotic arms finish assembling Andy's helmet, his pod ignites its thrusters and heads toward the nearest planet. When entering the planet's atmosphere, the gravitational pull becomes dangerously strong, causing the pods to fall at high speeds. Some pods catch fire and explode during the descent. Andy's pod deploys its wings to slow down, but they start to break apart, and the thrusters fail. The pod slams into elevated terrain and slides down a rocky slope before finally crashing into a pile of dirt. Unconscious, Andy briefly sees a vision of his family. When he wakes up, his AI detects irregularities and thinks he's having a heart attack, but Andy manages to deactivate the defibrillator. Looking out of the pod's window, he realizes he's stranded in a barren landscape. He tries the radio to contact someone, but there's no response. Suddenly, the pod shifts, and the AI warns him that the ground is unstable, urging him to leave. Andy tries to open the pod's door, but it won't budge. Checking the survival kit, he discovers that as a lower-ranking crew member, he doesn't have a flare gun. Desperate, Andy kicks at the door with no success and eventually grabs a fire extinguisher, using it to break the glass. As he climbs out, the pod tips over, and he falls back inside. During the fall, the broken glass tears his suit, causing oxygen to leak. Andy quickly uses a repair spray to seal the damage. Just then, the engine short-circuits, starting a small fire behind the seat. Andy grabs his son's toy from the wreckage and pushes dirt to escape the pod, which is now filling with smoke. Outside, he looks up and sees the Borealis falling from the sky, engulfed in flames. The ship crashes into the planet with a massive explosion, sending out a shockwave that knocks Andy to the ground. Recovering quickly, Andy asks the AI for information. It reveals that the Borealis only made it halfway through its journey and crashed in unmapped territory. Spotting a light in the distance, Andy begins walking toward it, all while trying to contact other survivors on his radio. After walking for a while, he comes across part of the Borealis wreckage, still on fire, and notices a pod nearby. Andy looks inside the pod and grabs the oxygen tank, but he's startled when the body of a fellow crew member falls out. Taking a closer look, he realizes the oxygen tank is broken. Without noticing the blood and claw marks on top of the pod, Andy moves on. A few minutes later, Andy finds a group of SOS lights surrounded by powerful winds. The setup belongs to Dwayne, who has managed to retrieve some equipment and is already considering using the bodies for food. Dwayne had checked the navigation log before the crash and discovered the company cut through an asteroid belt to save fuel, which is why they ended up in an uncharted area. Dwayne is using the equipment to send an SOS message to Earth, but the signal will take 8 months to get there. If rescuers come in a fast ship, they'll take about 2 years to arrive. Hearing this makes Andy start losing hope, but Dwayne reassures him they might find survival tools in the other half of the Borealis. While stepping back, Andy accidentally unplugs the machine and quickly turns to fix it. At that moment, a mysterious creature jumps out and grabs Dwayne, dragging him away without leaving any trace. When Andy turns back, Dwayne is gone. Andy sends the SOS message to Earth, then takes Dwayne's gun and prepares to leave. The AI warns him that his oxygen levels are running low, so Andy asks it to plot a route to the largest Borealis wreckage and begins walking. As he travels, he keeps trying the radio to find other survivors. Eventually, Andy reaches the edge of a cliff, but the AI admits it isn't functioning properly. Frustrated and thinking about his family, Andy yells out in anger. Suddenly, his radio picks up a noise. It's another survivor, Naomi. The signal is weak, so Andy runs around until he finds a spot with better reception. Naomi explains she's trapped in her pod. She's been scanning for trackers and confirms that the only survivors are her, Andy, and Dwayne. She sends Andy her location, but the AI warns him that the area is unstable and he might not have enough oxygen to get there. Andy hesitates, but Naomi convinces him by pointing out that she has enough oxygen for both of them. For hours, Andy keeps walking while chatting with Naomi. Naomi. Suddenly, he hears a strange noise and asks his AI to scan the area, but the function isn't working. Naomi tells him the model he's using was supposed to be discontinued, another cost-saving decision by the company that put the crew at risk. By now, it's nighttime, and Andy struggles to see because his helmet light isn't very strong. He freezes when he thinks he spots something but convinces himself it's just his imagination. Seconds later, he notices rocks rolling near his feet, which makes him uneasy as he hears more noises. Unseen by Andy, a shadow is watching him from above. He stumbles upon strange, small holes in the ground and follows them until he finds a larger hole covered in cobwebs. Realizing the small holes are paw prints, Andy becomes even more alarmed. Andy panics and quickens his pace, noticing that the cobwebs are becoming thicker. Soon, snow begins to fall, and the noises around him start sounding more like growls. Something large moves nearby, prompting Andy to turn off his helmet light and hide. Naomi is surprised when her scanner detects several crew trackers heading toward Andy, but none of them are responding. Andy has the AI connect to the signals, which now appear all around him. Naomi tells him the trackers are directly in front of him, but Andy can't see anything. Suddenly, a flare lights up the area, revealing a giant spider. The creature had eaten the crew members, and the trackers are in its stomach. Andy realizes Dwayne's gun isn't working, and in a panic, he screams and starts running. The spider tries to pounce on him, and Andy falls into a crack in the ground. When he looks up, the creature is reaching inside, trying to grab him. Terrified, Andy keeps running while the spider follows from above, slashing at him whenever it gets the chance. Though Andy manages to dodge the attacks, he becomes distracted by the monster and slips off a cliff. He rolls down at a painful speed, but luckily the snow cushions his landing. The spider roars at him from above but doesn't climb down. Shaken by the encounter, Andy tries to calm himself, but Naomi interrupts to warn him that his oxygen levels are dropping. He discovers the fall tore his suit again, so he rushes to seal the hole with the repair spray. He manages to patch it up, but he's now out of spray. At that moment, Andy hears Dwayne's voice on the radio, pleading for help as he fights off a group of spiders. Naomi insists that Andy help, but he's hesitant to face the monsters, especially since his scanner isn't working properly. However, when Naomi reminds him that Dwayne has oxygen, Andy changes his mind. Following the flares Dwayne is shooting into the sky, Andy navigates the crashed pods and finally finds him. Dwayne tries to share the monster's weakness, but before he can, a spider attacks him again. Andy hides and listens helplessly as Dwayne is killed over the radio. Fleeing to another pod, Andy finds a second spider nearby, also feeding on bodies. Naomi activates the lights and AI voice in one of the pods, distracting one of the spiders. Andy uses the opportunity to run and hide in another pod. However, Naomi accidentally activates the lights in Andy's pod too, startling him when he sees a dead body inside. She quickly corrects the mistake and activates the lights in several other pods, successfully distracting both spiders. Andy takes advantage of the confusion to escape, but the creatures soon realize they've been tricked and begin chasing him again. As Andy enters a foggy area, the spiders stop and freeze. They refuse to follow him into the mist and eventually leave. Relieved, Andy tells Naomi she should also find a safe spot, but Naomi reveals that she can't feel her legs. Naomi starts panicking, so Andy sings the song he used to sing for his son to help her calm down. After she feels better, Andy continues on and comes across a group of fireflies lighting up the area in a beautiful display. One of them lands on his helmet and suddenly turns red, attacking him. It doesn't hurt much on its own, but soon the other fireflies turn red too and swarm him together. Andy runs a little and manages to leave them behind, but then he hears growling. Something scared the fireflies away. Out of nowhere, the ground opens up and a massive monster's mouth appears, grabbing Andy. It covers him with a sticky, nasty substance that freezes him in place. The creature slowly starts swallowing him, inch by inch, until his entire body is inside its mouth. Desperate, Andy remembers the AI and announces he's having a heart attack. The defibrillator kicks in, delivering a powerful shock that forces the monster to spit him out. Angry now, the creature comes after him, and Andy runs to hide in what looks like a hollow tree trunk. There's a hole in the ground inside, and he falls into it, landing in a firefly nest. The fireflies immediately turn red and start poking him, chasing him as he runs through the tunnel. They only stop when he finally makes it out. Afterward, the AI informs Andy that his remaining oxygen is enough to reach the Borealis, but probably not enough to get to Naomi. Naomi also urges him to go to the ship, but Andy refuses to leave her behind. He keeps moving in her direction, pushing himself even though the crash flames make it harder to breathe. He eventually collapses but forces himself to get back up. Finally, Andy finds Naomi in her pod. She opens the door for him, and he can breathe properly again. He tries to free her trapped leg with his hands, but doesn't have the strength. Luckily, her higher rank means her emergency kit includes better tools, and Andy uses one to get her unstuck. Naomi feels some pain, but is relieved to find her leg isn't broken. After taking a moment to rest, they grab the flare gun and repair spray before heading out. Naomi struggles to walk because of the pain, so Andy quickly makes a splint to help her move. While Naomi checks out Dwayne's gun, a horde of spiders begins surrounding them. The two of them start running as fast as they can while Naomi keeps asking her suit AI for medicine to numb her leg. The spiders are relentless, chasing them toward the other half of the Borealis, which appears to be in decent shape. Naomi trips and falls, so Andy helps her slide down to move faster. The spiders close in, ready to attack. As they keep running, Andy and Naomi push pieces of crash debris behind them to block the spiders, but the monsters keep coming. One spider gets dangerously close, but Naomi shoots a flare, distracting it long enough for them to keep moving. Naomi fires a second flare to distract the rest of the spiders, giving them enough time to sprint up the hill and finally enter the Borealis. Naomi struggles with the control panel as the spiders close in, but just as one is about to crawl in, she manages to shut the door, crushing the creature in the process. The remaining spiders start pounding on the door while Naomi and Andy begin exploring the ship. Despite the damage, the lights are on, indicating the backup generator is still functional. They find boxes of supplies in the cargo hold and a stabilized atmosphere, meaning they can survive here until rescue arrives. Following a blood trail down a corridor, they come across the main console, which is covered in guts and cobwebs. The duo hides when a large spider enters the room. The creature opens its stomach, dropping human body parts and a helmet onto the floor. Andy feels sick and forces himself not to vomit. Luckily, the spider doesn't notice them and leaves. As they try to move, a hatch in the ceiling suddenly opens, and an even bigger monster crawls out. Acting fast, Andy shuts the door to protect them, but Naomi scolds him, explaining that now they're trapped in an airlock. As the bigger spider starts pounding on the right door, Andy uses a tool to try breaking the left one, but it doesn't work. Realizing there's no escape, they sit down, prepared for the worst. Andy plays a video of his family and confesses to Naomi that they died in a car crash, and he carries survivor's guilt because he was driving. Naomi snaps at him, reminding him that she's alive because of him, and they share a hug, thinking the end is near. That's when Naomi notices an orb full of fireflies stuck on Andy's suit. When the spider finally breaks through the door, they throw the orb at it. The fireflies attack the monster, forcing it to retreat. Seizing the moment, the duo presses a button on the main panel to open the other door and rushes toward the cargo bay. They stop abruptly when they realize they're on an elevated platform. The spider shakes off the fireflies and charges at them again, and since they can't close the door, they're forced to jump off the platform to avoid it. The spider crashes into the cargo bay, landing at the same time as them. Recovering quickly, the monster resumes its pursuit. Andy hurls the repair spray into its mouth, and when the creature bites down, the spray explodes, giving them a chance to run. But the spider moves to the ceiling to gain speed and drops down right behind them. The fall trips both Andy and Naomi, but Naomi quickly gets up and runs, luring the spider away. She yells at Andy to figure out a way to kill it. Looking around, Andy notices there are still pods in the cargo bay. He asks his AI to find one that works, discovering a functional pod at the very top. Andy climbs to the top row of pods as quickly as he can, reaching the highest platform just as the spider strikes Naomi. Acting fast, he turns off the lights, giving Naomi the chance to hide inside a box without being spotted. While inside, she finds some emergency lights and decides to use them. Meanwhile, Andy tries to eject the pod, but the AI informs him it won't work since he disabled the power. His only option is to eject it manually from the inside. Determined, Andy climbs into the pod and connects his AI to it. Naomi emerges from the box with the emergency lights wrapped around her, drawing the spider's attention toward her again. As the spider closes in, Andy looks at his son's toy, says a heartfelt goodbye to his AI, and waits for the perfect moment to eject the pod. A memory of the car crash flashes through his mind just before the pod slams down on the spider, crushing it and finally killing the monster. Naomi rushes to Andy's motionless body, sobbing as she thinks he's gone. She begs him to wake up, and after what feels like forever, Andy stirs. He's alive and well. Relieved, Naomi helps him up, and the two walk to a nearby window. Together, they watch the breathtaking sunrise, holding hands as they take in the moment of peace. Don't forget to subscribe. Here's some more interesting story you don't want to miss.